My name is Jonas Elaine Brisno. I am from Mexico City, and today I want to share my testimony and warn about the practices that for many years I saw and carried out in my own flesh. These dates on Halloween, at first glance it seems harmless, but it is completely the opposite. For years I was involved in Satanism, and that gave me a deep understanding of the darkness. The Bible in Ephesians 5:11 clearly warns us, and do not participate in the fruitless works of darkness. Halloween is one of those works, a celebration that has managed to infiltrate the whole world, adopted by nations, families and even churches that without realizing it are participating in something dangerous. Brothers, I invite you to share this testimony with your friends, family and with your congregation, because I assure you that it will be a great blessing and will open your spiritual eyes and awaken in each one of you the spirit of intercession. Let's start. I have seen with my own eyes how on October 31st it becomes a key date for those who practice the occult. Many dress up their children without knowing the background of what they are doing. But those of us who have been on the dark side know that Halloween is a completely diabolical and satanic celebration. It is not just about costumes or candy, it is much deeper. That day, witches and Satanists gathered to invoke Satan and a multitude of demons, filling the atmosphere with a dark presence that few can perceive, but that affects everyone. The name Halloween itself should be a warning. It is not a game, it is not a night to have fun. It is an open door to darkness, an invitation to the forces of evil. That day is not just a party for children, it is a ritual for those who serve darkness. Witch meetings are held where they invoke Satan and many demons, charging the air with a dark energy that facilitates all kinds of satanic activities. All of this is aimed at spiritually weakening those who are not aware of what is happening. Halloween is the day that Satanists celebrate. They will be one of their 4 great covens of the year. This last coven, the most important, takes place on October 31st and closes a cycle of evil that has begun long before the first covens of the year are held on February 2nd in May and August, and each of them has a specific purpose to prepare and strengthen the plans of the King of Darkness for the year. While most people prepare to celebrate the arrival of a new year on December 31st, the Satanists have already launched all kinds of curses and spiritual attacks in preparation for their new year that begins on October 31st. They do not wait until the last day to act. The months before Halloween are used to cast curses and hinder the plans of all those who seek blessings and prosperity in their lives. October 31st is the culmination of all that work. It is the day that the doors of hell open even more, allowing demons to move with greater freedom. That day human sacrifices are made, especially of children, because in Satanism it is believed that pure innocent blood free of evil is the perfect offering for Satan. I remember the sacrifices that were made. The blood of children was seen as the most valuable and was offered with the hope of obtaining the favor of Satan. He demands sacrifices imitating the kingdom of God, just as the Lord asks us to offer sacrifices of praise. Satan asks for worship and sacrifices, but in a twisted and perverse way. What many consider an innocent party is actually one of the most dangerous celebrations. Children and adults after Halloween are not the same. Many are spiritually contaminated, some even possessed by demons without knowing that it all began with what seemed to be just a night of costumes. The act of asking for candy, of going from house to house saying trick or treat, has a dark origin. In ancient times, witches and sorcerers went out on the night of the 31st of October to ask for offerings, not sweets but food, animals and other goods that would later be sacrificed in honor of the demons. They dressed in the bloody skins of the animals they killed, and through them they offered everything collected in dark rituals. Today people have forgotten the origin of this practice, but the spirit behind it remains the same. What many do not understand is that each door where candy is collected is an extension of that ancient ritual. Halloween is not an innocent party, it is a day of evil where darkness moves with more force than ever. The costumes, the decorations, the acts of fun, everything has a spiritual background that affects our lives, our homes and our families. What many do not see is that by participating in these activities they are opening doors for darkness to enter their homes. I have seen how after Halloween many children become aggressive rebels far from God. It is not a coincidence. It is the direct result of the spiritual contamination they have received. The Bible is clear we should not participate in the works of darkness. Halloween is a fruitful work of darkness. It is designed to destroy, to contaminate, to distance us from God. It is not just a night of costumes, it is a celebration of evil, and those who participate even in an innocent way are opening doors to Satan and his demons. It is my duty to warn them, because I was there and I know what happens on that night. Halloween is much more dangerous than most dare to believe. October 31st is much more than a simple party where children go out to ask for candy. That night everyone who has relationship with darkness, including Satanists, witches, sorcerers and Santeros, meets with a single purpose: to cast curses and hinder the plans of those who seek God. They do not waste a second. They use that date to unleash all kinds of evil spiritual works that affect our lives, and although many see it as something harmless, I can say with certainty that it is not. October 31st is when all the curses that have been preparing for months begin to act. Since February, when they celebrate the first coven, they begin to work on these curses. 11 witches and a priestess meet in a meticulously planned ritual, and from then on they begin the preparations to harm, hinder and destroy everything we plan to do. These rituals are not limited to a single day. The second one that takes place in May, where they continue to strengthen their plans. The third one comes in August, preparing everything so that October 31st is the culmination of their evil spiritual work. It is strategic, calculated and dangerous. What happens that night is the closing of a cycle of evil that has been brewing all the year, and it is not a coincidence that that night is full of symbols of death, darkness and terror. It is the day when darkness celebrates its temporary victory over light. While most people are not aware of what is happening, the gates of hell open and demons unfold with more force than at any other time of the year. Human sacrifices, especially of children, are a central part of these rituals. It is believed in Satanism that the blood of children is pure, without stain of sin, and that is why it is offered to Satan as the perfect sacrifice. We are not talking about urban legends, but about dark spiritual realities that happen on that date. Satan demands blood, imitating what God he asks, but distorting it with evil instead of sacrifice of praise and gratitude. He demands blood sacrifice. Halloween is the perversion of all that is holy. There is nothing harmless in Halloween. It is one of the most dangerous nights of the year. Food and animals that would be sacrificed to the demons at midnight, they covered themselves with the bloody skins of the animals they killed and offered those sacrifices in honor of the demons. This practice, disguised today as something fun, continues to have a deep spiritual impact. Although people may not know it anymore, the spirit behind this ritual is still the same. People have forgotten the origin of these practices, but the danger is still present every time children go out to trick or treat. Every time families decorate their houses with images of witches and demons are opening a door to the dark spiritual world. What was an ancient pagan ritual today is presented as something modern and harmless, but its essence remains the same, invoking demonic forces to manifest in our lives. After Halloween, I have seen how many people do not return to being the same. Children who were quiet and obedient suddenly become rebellious and aggressive. All this is the result of the spiritual contamination they receive during that night. The Bible warns us not to participate in the fruitless works of darkness. In ancient times it was firmly believed that those who did not give offerings to the witches and sorcerers who went around the houses on October 31st would suffer the consequences. It was said that if offerings were not given, a demon would come that same night to cause them some harm, even death. The witches and sorcerers would then go up to the mountains with everything they had collected and offer those offerings to their demons in the hope of appeasing their anger. Today all this has been disguised, but the spiritual reality behind this remains the same. This worries me deeply, especially when I see Christians who, maybe without going out to ask for sweets, end up consuming them. They ask children to share some of those sweets with them, not knowing that those sweets have a dark purpose. If you consume those sweets, you are participating in the fruitless works of darkness. As the Apostle Paul says in Ephesians, we cannot be part of these celebrations, because what happens behind all this is a completely satanic operation. At 12 o'clock at night on October 31st, the rituals begin. The black masses and sacrifices are made offering offerings to the demons. Many of the children and people who went out to ask for candy that night will be visited by demons. What is happening in the spiritual world? I assure you that at 12 o'clock at night the demons will come to collect that offering. It is not a question of whether you believe it or not. It is a spiritual reality that I have seen with my own eyes. If you have those candies in your house, I urge you that you take them out immediately, because what you collected for your children was actually an offering to Satan and his demons. Halloween is not what it seems. I have been in that world for 8 years. I have seen how the darkness operates behind all this, and once you touch that world you can no longer be the same. Knowing how the darkness works changes you forever. From the moment I decided to leave that world, I have been attacked for revealing these truths. Satan does not want you to know the truth. For years people have been offering sacrifices to Satan without even realizing it, and this increasingly strengthens the kingdom of the darkness. You cannot continue participating in something where Satan is involved. All the symbolism associated with Halloween has satanic roots. The costumes that people use, the masks of demons and the images of witches, everything has a dark background. Satan has blinded people so that they do not see the spiritual reality of what they are doing. The costume is not something biblical in the Bible. Everything related to costumes was used for evil. The Lord does not want you to dress up or dress up your children. Behind each costume there is a diabolical operation. The costumes hide the identity that God has given you, the image and likeness that you have with your Creator. Satan is the only one who does not want you to continue identifying with God. That is why he seeks that people dress up to hide who they really are. In the Bible, whenever a costume is mentioned, it is associated with deception. In 1 Samuel chapter 28 verse 8 it is narrated how Saul, disguised, went to consult a fortune teller, hid his identity as king to ask something that he should not, wishing to invoke the prophet. This is a clear example of how the disguise is used for deception and for acts that displease the Lord. But not only that, in 2 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 14 we are warned that Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. After October 31st, November 1st, what many call the Day of the Dead or the Day of the Saints is celebrated. Although for some this celebration seems religious, it is actually disguised as what is really a celebration of death. The Catholic Church consecrated this date to remember the dead, but the Bible is clear in saying that we should not consult the dead, and in Ecclesiastes we are told that the dead no longer have a part with the living, and any attempt to communicate with them is an open door to spiritual deception. I clearly remember a funeral I attended where a woman began to talk to the grave of a relative. She not only spoke to him but brought him a glass of water, placing it on the tombstone, and began a conversation as if the dead could answer her. This is completely diabolical. Satan always seeks to lead us against the Word of God, and one of the ways he does it is through spiritualism and the practice of consulting the dead. What many do not understand is that when they try to communicate with a deceased loved one, they are not talking to that person but to a demon. Spiritualist mediums and those who practice the occult are actually contacting